So, today we're going to talk about one of my most favorite things to talk about in the world of ag communications, and that is risk and crisis communications. This is one of my research areas. I love to talk about and do research on risk and crisis communications. So, step one, let's look at just the risk in this part. Before you do anything, start assessing your areas of risk. So, when you get your new cool job, ask, do we have a crisis communications plan? Find that out, and if not, take it upon yourself to develop one. So, your first step in developing that crisis communications plan is looking at your areas of risk. So, I wanted to use a real world example that we could think about, but let's look at things that are within our control, in somebody else's control, and things that are nobody's control. So, we'll start here with things that are in our control. And I just used our department, but yeah, like a data breach. If we're not protecting students' records, that's our fault. And, that could be a huge crisis for our department if student records got out and it was our fault that we did not protect those. So that's something. Issues with the building. Let's say that we knew that there was mold growing in this building and we didn't do anything about it. That's a big PR issue for us. Poor morale, poor product. If our degrees don't stand up in the industry, that's our fault. We need to fix that. We could be outcompeted and outpriced, which really within our department, we have nothing to do with the price of tuition. We haven't been managing our reputation. Like there's a lot of stuff that we can control. And if we're not controlling it, it can kind of spiral out of control. Things that other people have to do, a shooter or workplace violence or a bomb threat. Those I mean, we can't stop it. I mean, there are things that we can do if somebody walks into our building, but if somebody makes up their mind that they're going to walk in and shoot, that's within their control. But those are things that we need to be prepared for and know how we would communicate about those things should they happen. Other things, theft. All of our buildings at Texas Tech are subject to having something stolen from them. There's pricey equipment in every building. Bad behavior of a student or an employee, trolls on our social media, those are things that we need to have a plan for. How would we communicate about that? And then there are things that are within nobody's control. And I used these slides back on March 13th, the last time that we met. But yeah, pandemic, like this is something, and when we put these slides together, we're thinking about a flu outbreak or something like that. We weren't really thinking of a global pandemic, but these are things to prepare for. What if all of our faculty were wiped out with COVID-19 or next winter? What if we all come down with the flu? Those are things that we would need to figure out a plan for how to communicate those things within our department. When I've consulted on some communications plans in the past, and that's something that I do, kind of like some freelance type stuff. We look at that in terms of like an office. So what happens if an entire branch of your bank gets the flu? So those are the types of things we've never thought of like on a global scale. I mean, we have, but it's so out there and none of us have ever experienced that. We're all subject to severe weather. We're all subject to hidden building issues. I mean, things happen within buildings, like you get termites that you didn't know about, or there's a secret leak somewhere and all of a sudden you have a ton of black mold growing. Those are the types of things that are kind of not within our control. Some other things like rumors. I always mispronounce this. Malevolence. It kind of makes trolls look mild. So like somebody that's very angry and anti the organization. Discontented stakeholders. I mean, what would happen if we had an alumni uprising because they're all mad because tuition is so expensive? Big technical error accidents. This would be like Boeing's 737 Supermax crashing. big things. But I mean, these are some areas of risk. Human error accidents, or just organizational misdeeds. What if we had somebody within the organization, a person or two, that were laundering money or stealing 2 cents on every transaction, or things like that? Those are some things that we need to assess. How high, how susceptible are these things? So step one, if there's no plan in place, and if your organization has not done that, take it upon yourself to do this. And it helps when you have several minds in there, and find the most negative person in the office, and have them on. This is where their negativity is helpful, because they can come up with all of these kind of scary situations. Communicate these risks out. Some are pretty simple. Some you may need to hire some sort of a consultant to do. But when you analyze your risk, it can help with prevention. And never assume that things can't happen to you. It's not if a disaster will occur, it's when. Hopefully, it'll be small and manageable. We'll move on to the crisis plan in the next presentation.